Oh, now this is spicy, Bill. Come here close, because we have an unrestricted free agent out of Winnipeg. There he is! Nik Ehlers. And in a recent mailbag, Michael Russo mentioned this name as a possible target for the Wild this offseason, as we're looking to add some extra scoring behind Kaprizov, and if Besser's not available, head coach John Hynes could have a very interesting option here. We have to dive into the pros and cons for Ehlers. We also have to dive into a little David Jiricek update on the outlook of what he looks like with Minnesota heading into next year. A lot of stuff to get into on this episode of Wild Digest. But guys, a quick reminder, a bunch of you, still over 80% of you not subscribed. We said we got that big goal of 2,000 subscribers by the end of May. We got about 2 weeks, so if you're enjoying the daily content, hit that free button down below. Mark, before we get into this spicy Nik Ehlers thing here, I know division rival, there's a lot we got to talk about on that front. People are probably already writing comments, but I want to start with David Jiricek because, look, we gave up a lot to get him. We've talked about him a lot on the show, but in one of these other mailbags, again, Michael Russo had something to say about him. I'll link both of these articles down below. I really suggest you guys go read it. I mean, it's Michael Russo. You'll always enjoy something like that. But I want to dive into this first. He said, I'll be curious to see if Zach Bogosian comes to camp penciled in as the 7th defenseman. It almost feels like Bogosian is blocking Jiricek, and now Jiricek is blocking David Spacek, which is a shame because I gotta think Spacek must want to change the scenery by now. And look, we're gonna get into a few of these guys, Mark, but when it comes to David Jiricek, would it shock you to see him be the 6th defenseman on this team and have Bogosian be the 7th guy? I think at this point you got to give him an opportunity, but look, if he doesn't seize it, I don't know. You know, we really want to make sure that this guy works out. What do you think about him?
I mean, the big thing is you give up so much to bring in Jiricek that you almost have to let him try to be that 6th defenseman going in. Listen, Bogosian's awesome. We love him in Minnesota, but the thing is, Bogosian is very extendable where you can't really move on from a prospect or a piece that you give up multiple picks for to bring in. I think Jiricek has a very successful career ahead of him. He did slow down a bit joining. He went down to Iowa. He got injured, but I do see a bright future. And if it doesn't work at the start of the year, Josh Bogosian slides right into the 6th defenseman. Jiricek can go back to Iowa, but you need to start getting concerned if Jiricek, in my opinion, doesn't really pan out this season.
Yeah, I mean, look, the thing is, again, he's had a brutal year. I mean, like, getting traded, having some brutal injuries, like, it just sucks. And even in his 3 games, or 4 games with the Cleveland Monsters, he had 2 goals, and, like, he's just not been able to stay that healthy. And again, like, switching to a new team, it is what it is. But I am very excited to see what he'll be able to do this upcoming season. And it's a make or break year, let's be honest. I mean, not, like, in a way, like, I'm not saying give up on Jiricek after this year if it doesn't work out, because I think that'd be a bad idea, but, like, he's 21 now. I know it takes people some time to get used to it. He's still very young, but, like, I'd love to see something big from him. But I want to hear your guys' thoughts on Jiricek. Is he going to slot in as that 6th defenseman? Do you have him there over Bogosian? Wouldn't surprise me. And look, there's some talk about the Wild maybe trading some of their defensemen in the future too, but that's a topic for another day. I did want to briefly mention David Spacek as well. Son of Yaro Spacek, of course, born in Columbus, which I always find very interesting because I think that's where his father was playing at the time. But look, Mark, he's been great as well with Iowa, 31 points in 72 games this year after even spending a little 3 games down to the ECHL last year. David Spacek looks like a very solid player. Not a guy we talk about a ton, but even Russo was saying, like, he talks to other Czech players. Like, even someone like David Pastrnak says, like, Spacek looks like he could very well be a good NHL player. It sucks for him because he is kind of blocked in. What kind of thoughts do you have on Spacek? Do you think Russo's right in the sense that, like, he might want a new place to play? And is he a guy that's just a trade candidate for Minnesota, even though it looks like he could very well turn into a solid bottom 4 player in the NHL?
I mean, if you want to pull up the screenshot again of their depth chart, I think it's hard to get Spacek in. You're looking at the right side, Faber, Spurgeon, Bogosian. This doesn't even have Jiricek there. It does seem like if he wants to get into the NHL, it might have to be on another team. Listen, he could come into camp absolute dominant, put up a fight for that 7th spot. Maybe Bogosian's the guy that ends up leaving, but I do think it's going to get to the point where a lot of these guys, especially on defense, are going to maybe look at a new change of scenery. Maybe these are trade pieces that Bill can go out and use to get more positional needs in center, maybe another winger. But I do think it's going to start getting to the point where the defenders in Iowa are looking up and saying, hey, there's not really a future for me for the next couple of seasons at least.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see what's going on there because I do really like Spacek. I believe he's at the World Championships right now. So it's like, I don't know. I'd love to see what happens with him, but not everyone's going to work out for every team. Leave your thoughts down below on Jiricek, Spacek, and the whole defense situation. Love to hear from you down there, but we got to move on, Mark, to a very interesting one. And I think this is going to be controversial because Nik Ehlers, look, I'll get to the quote here. So we'll start here with, well, there's the stats. Let me actually show the quote first. Again, from Russo from this article, talking about some maybe names that we haven't heard linked to the Wild, because look, Mark, we've heard a lot about whether it be Brock Besser or we've heard about Brock Nelson, everyone named Brock apparently. We already have Brock Faber. Wow, that's kind of crazy, isn't it? But they're talking about Nik Ehlers. He said, look, Nik Ehlers would be ideal because of his speed and scoring ability, but he's prone to injury. Hey, he'd fit in, and will be expensive and may not love the idea of playing for the Jets' biggest rival. If he signs here, Ryan Hartman probably owes him a dinner or three. Yeah, that's putting it lightly. I mean, that was rough, you know. He served his time. That's it. But Nik Ehlers, Mark, is a guy that we just kind of don't really talk about. Again, division rival, probably don't want to sign there. But when we're talking about the possibility, because this comes on the heels of them discussing the fact that Besser going back to Vancouver is not completely off the table. We've kind of just assumed he's going to be a free agent and assumed he's probably going to Minnesota, but that's not always the case. You never know. And when you're looking at a guy like Ehlers, 63 points in 69 games, honestly, he's had a great career, extremely consistent, 61 and 82, 38 and 45, 55 and 62, 46 and 47. He's fast. He gets goals. When he's healthy, he's a 25-30 goal scorer, on pace for more than 30 in a couple of different seasons. I think he actually is a very interesting fit, the Danish player, Mark. Like, as much as it is a division rival player who might not want to come to Minnesota, you never really know. And if Besser is not an option, as much as this is like somewhat of a joke, I think, from Russo, maybe even not, I actually really don't mind the idea of this, despite him being a little injury prone.
I mean, that's the big thing. The injury-prone situation is something you need to look at. But Ehlers coming in, he immediately jumps in that top six as a scoring winger. He'd fit perfectly with a lot of players. I mean, Rossi's going to go, but Yurov and Ehlers, that's a pretty outstanding center and right wing combo. But the big thing is, I think they need to actively look. Yes, Brock Besser is a big piece that might go back to the Canucks. He's from Minnesota, so maybe he doesn't, but it's going to get very interesting. I think Ehlers is an awesome option. It depends on the term. If you don't want to bring him in on a 7-year deal, if he's going to be a guy that's maybe in and out of the lineup too much, but I think getting a guy that can score your goals, 60 plus points, this is very underrated, where there's not always guys like this hitting the open market.
No, almost never. And again, like, the injury proneness is definitely a factor. When you look, like, missed 13 games this year, played a full 82 last year, again, 45 and 22, 23, but like, prior to that, I mean, like, 82 games in 16, 17, 82 and 17, 18, a full 71 games in 19, 20 in the shortened season. It's like, it feels like he plays full seasons and then misses a chunk of games. So, like, that's one of the things you're going to get with Ehlers, which is why it might drive his AAV down. But again, like, he's probably going to get a 7-year deal. The question is Minnesota one of these teams that's willing to offer him a 7-year deal to solidify this forward core? Because he is a guy whose game, like, yes, his speed is important to his game, but he has a very good shot and he's a very solid playmaker. Plus, he seems to be an amazing team player, right? So wherever he goes, I don't think his game, or at least his impact, will age too poorly, especially if you sign until the age of 36. You're probably going to have like a rough maybe 2 or 3 years at the end of that. But especially with this Minnesota core that's looking to be competitive basically throughout that exact window, because Kaprizov is 28 years old. They got to remind people of that. Kaprizov is 28, Nikolai Ehlers is 29, and he doesn't turn 30 until next February, right? So looking at this, Mark, I don't think this is completely out of the question. Getting a veteran, I like this idea more than someone like a Nelson. When it comes to between him and Besser, I think they bring different things. I think Besser brings more goal scoring, obviously, but like, we're talking options here. Getting one of these near 30-year-old veterans, even if there's a bit of injury proneness, I think if you can give them an offer that they kind of can't refuse, I don't know, maybe you guys disagree, but I genuinely think he'd fit anywhere in this lineup. Hey, maybe even play him with Hartman.
I mean, you said it perfectly too. I think the center position, yes, Brock Nelson would be cool. You bring him into this team, but you have Yurov coming in to play that center position. He can slot right into that top six as a center. But the big thing is, like you said, the injuries. If you don't want to look at this, Ehlers an incredible player. Go all in on this guy. Bring him in, a goal scorer. He can play in your middle six, your top line, wherever you want to put him. But I think it's going to be a bidding war on a lot of these guys. And Josh, would it surprise you? I know sign and trades doesn't happen a lot, but the Wild have, like we spoke about, a lot of defensemen that are kind of extendable at this point. Could you see maybe a sign and trade just to try to get that 7th or maybe even 8th year onto the deal?
Oh, tough. I think that Winnipeg probably wouldn't want to engage. I think then, because I think we're talking UFA status where it's just Ehlers versus Winnipeg having to agree to something, which I think is a lot less likely if we're talking Winnipeg and Minnesota trying to agree on literally anything. But, you know, it is an interesting idea. And it's a great point, because it wouldn't shock me to see that happen with maybe another team, right? It's rare, But hey, you never really know. And again, Ehlers, he might just go back to Winnipeg. I don't know. There's a lot of question marks here. But listen, we gotta cut it short on this one. That'll do it for this episode. Leave your thoughts on Ehlers. It's a spicy take. I don't think it's likely, but just imagine. I think the fit could maybe be there. But that'll do it for this episode of Wild Digest. If you enjoyed, hey, hit that subscribe button, guys. We're getting closer to 1,500. We're pushing for 2,000 by the end of the month. And hey, if you made it this far into the video and you haven't hit that button yet, I think we deserve it at this point. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host, Marc Pye. We'll catch you in the next one.